let's talk scenario, right? Water's anywhere from 60 to 64 degrees. We live in Virginia, so we have crazy weather, right? Today it was like 65. Tomorrow's supposed to be 90. Saturday it might snow. Who knows, right? Yeah, it's definitely Virginia weather. So you have to be very mindful of the weather conditions, whether you're tournament fishing or just bank fishing, right? Because the fish are affected by the weather. They're affected by the moon phase. They're affected by the wind, right? So you have to keep all that in mind. Again, whether you're fishing from a boat or from the shore, right? So it's 60 degrees. It's early spring. The fish they're worried about two things right now. One, eating as much as they can, and two, getting it on with the ladies, right? It's that time of year. They're ready to spawn. They're ready to do a little rubbing, you know what I mean? So it's really good because they're ready to eat. So it's easy to go out and catch a bunch of fish, and it's really easy to go out and catch some really big fish because they're full of eggs. They weigh more. You know, it's kind of a trophy season right now because you're gonna catch them bigger while they're ready to spawn, as opposed to after they spawn, lay all the eggs. They're really skinned. They're really skinny. They're malnutrition. You know, because they haven't ate while they were doing their thing. So we're going to talk about some techniques that will really help us catch fish this time of year in that scenario. The water's 60 to 64 degrees. They're thinking about spawning. When they think about spawning, they come up into the shallows, the flats, to build their nest. Just like a bird would build a nest, they build a nest. But they don't gather a bunch of stuff to build it. They actually fan it out and make a nest. It's a round circle. They clean it out with their tails. The men come in, do all the work. Typical, right? Come in, they fan it with their tail, they clean it off so it's a hard bottom. And the female comes in, she lays there, she lays her eggs, and the male guards it. Again, does all the work, right? So, a couple things we're going to talk about. So, if I went out fishing right now and I was going to go junk fishing, this would be the box that I would use. It has a little bit of everything. It has a topwater bait, okay? So it's a surface bait. It walks. All right, so I cast it out, and this one stays on the surface, and it's a sight bait, right? You see the strike. It's on the surface, fish comes up, blows up on it, and it's gone. So you know you got it. Okay, same thing with a topwater frog, all right? Or a buzzbait. Buzzbait, what it does, and this one's missing the skirt. Usually, when I say skirt, I mean this thing right here, okay? Usually it'll have it on there. This is a topwater bait. You throw it out, you reel it real slow, and this thing is going on the surface, going boop, 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 just making noise and attracting a fish, and they'll come up and eat this too. So it's all topwaters. Once the water hits 63 and above, I'm going to throw topwater because the fish are, they're not lethargic anymore. They're willing to eat. They hear the sound, the vibration from the blades on that thing turning. They hone in on it, and they're going to eat it. Because what they think it is, they think it's small fish or small shad, like sunnies or bluegills will come up to the surface and they eat, right? So when they come up, they'll eat something, they'll make like a little clicking noise, and then it'll go back down. Bass think these are sunnies or little shad that are on the surface, or bait fish flickering on the surface. They're not looking at it. They don't know that it's a black and yellow frog. They're just like, uh-oh, something's up there, I'm going to eat it. They're opportunistic. If something's there, they're going to eat it. So this is our topwater. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to cover from the top to the bottom. So this is how we cover the top of the surface. So early in the morning with low light conditions, I want to throw topwater baits. Okay. By far, this is the best way of fishing you'll ever have right here. Because when you get a topwater strike, it's just unbelievable. Because they might come up and they might just come up and grab the bait behind it, and the bait disappears and you never know. And your line starts getting tight and you're like, oh, I got a fish. And then again, they might come up from underneath it and just crush it. So they come out, you know, kind of like Shark Week. You ever watch Shark Week?
Yeah.
When they kill the seal, right? That's what they do to the frog. Okay, I mean, they just come up and the frog will fly, or they'll have it in their mouth. My favorite one is when a fish comes up and lands on top of it, right? That's when you know they really want it. Like, he's hungry. He thinks it's his last meal before he gets electrocuted, you know, on death row. Like, that's how bad he wants it. But they're really fun to watch. And that's why I call it a sight fishing deal, because you can see the bait, you can see all these, you'll see the fish react to it. It's a lot easier to catch and get numbers of catches, as opposed to some of the other things we're going to talk about, where it's, when we talk about between the surface and the bottom, you're talking more about feel and reaction to the rod, knowing that there's a fish there as opposed to seeing it. If that makes sense, right? So again, top water, we got that covered. Low light conditions, so early morning, late evening. You ever been out on the water? You start seeing things come to life, like fish are starting to pop on the water, and little bugs are swimming around. That's when you want to be doing this. Okay. So
mosquitoes, like there's a dumb fisher out there, let's bite them.
Yep. So just to touch on maybe the different top waters. Okay, if you look at the difference between this one and this one, biggest difference you're going to see is the mouth of the bait. Okay, this one's got a cup, this one doesn't. Okay, so this one comes across the surface just like this, and that's all you do. You cast it out, you slap your rod tip, and it'll make this bait go like that. Okay, so when you see the bait do that, you hear the noise it's making. Okay, it's making a little noise because there's a rattle inside of here, and this is actually a Boeing's lure. There's a BB inside of there that's attached to a metal wire, and every time the bait goes out side to side, that BB just clicks side to side. So you gotta, if you threw it out and reeled it straight in, it would never make a noise. But if you pop the rod tip, it's gonna make him go side to side, and you're gonna get the boing, 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 boing.
You just keep popping it?
Yep. You reel it out. Once it hits the water, if you're throwing it on a spinning rod or a bait catch or whatever, click it one time so that the bail is engaged, and then you just put your rod tip down. You're gonna go like this. That's it. And by moving that rod tip that much, literally 4 or 5 inches, it's gonna make that bait go like this, and that's what you want to do. And that technique is actually called walking the dog. Okay. But you see the difference between this guy, right? His lip is cupped. Okay. So he's not going to be a smooth walker across the surface. He's actually, you're going to pop it, and he's going to go bloop, bloop. Okay. So what he's doing is when you pop the rod tip, instead of him going side to side, he's actually going down, and he's grabbing a little bit of water, and he's going to spray water out and make this little popping noise. Okay. And then with this guy, when you pop it and he goes bloop, you're just going to let it sit there. Because the bloop bloop is what's calling the fish in. And you're going to let it sit there because now that fish is aware that something's there and he's going to come looking for it. Okay? This one you want to keep constantly moving. So you're probably going to get, I would say, more violent strikes on this guy because it's constantly moving. The fish has to be more aggressive to catch this guy. This one, when it goes bloop and it stops, you can hone in on it. And 9 times out of 10, the next time, as soon as you move it, is when you're going to get the strike. Because he's watching it, he's watching. As soon as it moves, that's when he's going to react to it. Okay? So again, it's really easy to walk in a Walmart, look at the sporting goods shelf, and buy a bunch of stuff. But if you don't know the difference, you can't be successful. Again, having the right tools, you know what I mean? And then just the knowledge behind it. So 2 different scenarios, but it covers the same thing. They're both top waters, but they do 2 totally different things. Okay. So that's got the top covered. We're going to go medium range, right? Scenario is our water's 3 feet deep. Okay. So that's got the surface. Now we're looking at something maybe just below the surface. Okay. Within, I would say, 1 foot to maybe 2 feet. Okay. Because anything below that is the bottom, right? So we got the old trusty spinner bait. Okay. Again, this is one of those deals where cast it out, wind it in. When the line gets tight or it starts swimming off to the left or to the right, you got a fish. Okay. Get some very violent strikes on these 2. Something that you're looking for, like we talked about in the top water. Perfect conditions for top waters, early morning, late evening. This guy, when it's windy. Okay. A couple reasons why. All right. If you're fishing a bank that the wind is blowing into, what do you think's happening?
Going into the bank?
Yep, you're walking the bank to fish, okay, and the wind's blowing into your face. So the wind's blowing into the bank that you're walking on to fish. What's happening?
I think the fish should be coming close.
Why are they coming close?
Because that's where everything's at. For the food is, I would think. That's where everything's.
You nailed it.
Yeah.
It's the circle of life, right? The plankton's getting blown into the bank. The bait fish are coming after the plankton. What's coming after the bait fish? The big larries,
Big fish, yeah.
the big largemouth, right? So with the wind, it's breaking up the surface. Okay, if it's no wind and the water looks like glass, fish get very hard to get caught during those conditions because they have a better eyesight. They can really sit back and look at things. Like, well, you know, that doesn't look too natural. It isn't appealing. You know, there's no reason to react to it because I can see it coming from a mile away. But when it's windy, the water gets churned up a little bit. It gets a little bit different color to it, right? It breaks up the water column, so you can't necessarily see. You know, it's not crystal clear, and that's exactly how a fish sees. Like if you're in clear water, and you can see down to the bottom because it's gin clear and it's calm. Okay. If you can see those fish can see you. But if it's a little bit windy, it's choppy, it's got it churned up just a little bit, it's not gin clear anymore, right? And you can't see them, then there's a good shot that they can't see you. Okay. So reaction bait, okay? And when I say reaction bait, meaning the fish is just reacting to it coming by, okay? Think about you're at a party. Somebody comes by with a platter of hors d'oeuvres, right? You may not be hungry, right? Probably got a cocktail in your hand, but you're like, oh, there goes a tray of hors d'oeuvres. Let me just grab one.
Which is probably how you got the drink in your hand in the first place.
That's right.
I walk by with the tray.
That's right. So that's a reaction, right? You didn't go seek it out. You didn't ask for it. It just happened to walk by. Opportunistic. I grab one. I put it in my mouth. All right. Same thing as a reaction bite. Okay. It's pretty funny. I relate everything to food, right? But to me, it makes sense about how to explain it as a reaction bite. He's not necessarily hungry. He's not out searching for food, but something come by his face and he's going to eat it. Okay. So you'll hear me say reaction bite a couple times. Top water is a reaction bite. Spinner bait, something fast moving, is a reaction bite.
Top water is a reaction too?
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought based on what you're saying, they see it up there and they go up and strike it.
Well, they hear it.
Okay.
Okay. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're hungry at the time. Doesn't necessarily mean they want it, but they hear it.
Okay.
Okay. If a male fish is guarding fry, and something comes over his fry, okay, he might eat it just because he thinks it's going to attack his fry.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, reaction. Sometimes I swear I've seen them eat these things, not to eat them, but just to destroy them. Like you will see them come up, and you'll see the bait fly 2 or 3 feet. Doesn't mean he was trying to eat it. He's just trying to get it out of the way. Okay. When they land on top of it with their mouth open, they're trying to eat it, right? Even when they're trying to destroy it, though, sometimes you'll catch them because hey, they hit it and the hook gets them. Okay. I mean, I've caught fish on top water, on top of their head, in the side of their face. Okay. Way back in the back of their throat. That's the ones that wanted to eat it, right? So, spinnerbait's really fun, something that can really be entertaining because you're chucking and winding, right? There's some things we're going to talk about here in a few minutes with plastics. Fishing really slow, you might fall asleep standing up, right? To me, it's so boring. I hate doing it. Sometimes you have to do it. I have to do it in tournaments if I want to be competitive and catch them, but I absolutely hate doing it because it's so slow. This you could chuck and wind all day, right? Think about this: the more cash you make, I guess you would say the percentage rate of your catch is going to go up because you're making more casts. If I'm fishing on soft plastic really slow, and I'm making one cast every 5 minutes because it takes me 5 minutes to work it back really slow, but I'm making 20 casts in 5 minutes, I got a good shot at catching more fish just by throwing this than this. Okay. But with, hopefully the stuff that I teach you guys in this class, you'll put into your own perspective and make your own decisions out there. Like, hey, Tank talked to me about the spinnerbait, but it's slick calm. It's not a good decision to throw it. Mm-hmm. And then again, you can always go against the grain and catch them. Like, there's books, millions of books out there written about bass fishing. And every time I catch a fish that I'm not supposed to, I say, well, that wasn't written in the book, or that goes against the book, right?
Time to write a new book.
There you go. But I mean, it's just a lot of that comes with time, either on the water or around the water, making those decisions. So we got the middle covered. One other thing, probably my second most favorite thing and way to catch them is, so we got the spinnerbait. It's fast moving. Obviously you can tell exactly what it represents, right? Bait fish. Okay. This is fluttering behind it. When you throw it out and you're reeling it in, if you have the right rod setup, your rod tip is going to be going like this, okay? Because the blade's moving. This thing is just fluttering and spinning. So your rod tip on your rod is shaking, okay? If you throw it out there and it's shaking, and all of a sudden it stops, there's two things. Either you got a fish, or you hung up on something. Okay? And I always tell everybody, set the hook, it's free. Okay? So you throw this out there, your rod tip shaking, and it stops, set the hook. Okay? Here on the river, on the Potomac River, there's a lot of vegetation in the river, meaning grass, different types of grass, everywhere. It could be shallow, it could be deep. If you're walking the bank, if you guys go down to the archery range, and you're fishing off the bank, there might be a section of the bank where it's really hard and rocky. Okay, you might feel it bumping off rocks and stuff like that. If you move down 20, 40 yards, you might hit a patch of grass. Okay, around the river, during certain times of the year, you want to find those type of areas. You want to specifically be around the hard cover, the rocks and the wood. And then other times you want to be specifically around the grass. You gotta let the bass and the fish tell you what they're relating to. Are they relating to grass or are they relating to hard structure? But with this bait, you can fish both.
How do you determine that? How do you?
Where do I catch more fish? Off of the hard stuff or the grass?
Okay.
If I found both and I fish the hard stuff for 20 minutes and I don't get bit and I move over to the grass and I get bit twice in 20 minutes, something's telling me, hey, they might be related to grass today. But here's the deal. Tomorrow the conditions change, they might be back on the wood, right? So that's where just knowing to check, especially if you're walking down at the archery range and that's a perfect setup. They have a 40-yard stretch that's hard and they have a 40-yard stretch of grass. You got the best of both worlds, right? And you can fish both. But they're going to tell you because you're going to get more bites. And then again, you might catch them on both. Okay. Generally, you're going to catch more fish in the grass because they have more room for more fish to be there. The hard stuff, they're kind of like sharing a bed with your sister, right? You don't want to share a bed with your sister too long, so you kick her out of the bed. You want to be the king of the bed. That's how they are on hard stuff. If they got one rock sitting there, okay, and he's waiting for something to come by to eat it, he doesn't want any competition. He wants to be the king of the rock, okay? But if you catch one off the rock at 9 o'clock, there's a good chance that by 2 p.m. you might catch another one off that rock. Because if he's gone, another one has moved in, just waiting for something to come by. Okay. So spinnerbait, actually spinnerbait can be worked at any depth. It can cover the top or the bottom. Okay. The way you do that is your reel speed. If you want to keep it high on the surface, keep your rod tip up and reel fast. Right? You can tell if it's popping out of the water, you're reeling too fast. If you slow down, it might stay right below the surface. If you want to fish the bottom or right off the bottom, throw it out, let it sink all the way to the bottom, and start reeling slower. Right? If you're coming back with, a bunch of like nasty stuff from the bottom, you got to pick it up just a little bit. It'll take maybe 5 casts to dial you in on this. Right? It's like zeroing your rifle on the rifle range. Hey, 4 or 5 casts, that was too fast, that was too slow, all right, I got it. And then you catch a fish and then you really dialed it. Makes sense, right? So the next one is a crankbait, okay? And to be specific about this crankbait, this is a baby 1 minus. The 1 minus meaning it only runs 1 foot under the surface, okay? So as I buy this out the package, it tells me exactly what it's going to do. All I got to do is read the package, right? So it tells me 1 foot. I know that this bait is going to die 1 foot. Now, there's 10 gazillion crankbaits out there. There's some with square lips, there's some with round lips, there's some that have lips this long that dive really deep, and then you get a short lip. And when I say lip, I mean this thing right here. And it being so short, that's what keeps it to the 1 foot. Okay? But that's how you cover water, right? If we're fishing 4 feet, I got a bait that now runs 1 foot, and then I may have another bait that runs 3 foot. Okay? And now I've covered the entire water column. Okay? And it would be just like that. He runs this shallow under the water, and he runs here. Okay? And our water's only this deep. Right? Make sense? So same thing with this guy. As a spinnerbait, you cast it out there on the right setup. Your rod tip is going to do this. Okay? It stops doing that. 2 things. You hung up or you got a fish. Okay? Generally with a crankbait, you will feel the bite. It'll feel like it'll feel really like mushy. Okay? Or it might not slacken the line. Okay? When we get up from the table, I'm going to have you guys hold a rod and I'm going to explain how the bites feel, okay? Because, you know, it depends on how aggressive they are. Again, if it's a reaction bite or if they're really truly trying to eat it because they're hungry, or, you know, they're just kind of defending their territory or whatever the case may be. There's different ways, and once you feel that, again, within 5 or 6 fish being caught, you're like, oh yeah, now I got it. I see how they're eating today. Like one day they're crushing it, one day they're knocking slack in the line, and the next day they're just slapping at it. Okay? And that's all the decisions you got to make on the fly, or the adjustments. Okay? So again, this guy's going to cover 1 foot. You know, if you had another crankbait that dove 3, depending on how deep you're fishing. Let me ask you this: you're walking a bank. You don't have a fancy sonar unit like most guys have on their boats. How do you determine how deep the water is?
On the boat, or you just walk?
From the bank.
From the bank.
That's one way.
Color the water. It goes deeper. The water gets darker.
Yeah, that's another. With your rod and with your bait, how do you determine how deep it is?
I guess we got a photo. You can throw it out there and the weight.
Count it down.
Yeah.
Yep. So once you figure out, okay, if I was going out fishing on a Saturday night, okay, and I purchased this at Walmart before my hot date on Friday night. When I got home from my hot date, I'd tie this thing to my rod, okay, and I'd fill my bathtub up or pool if I got one, you know, at the apartment complex or at my house, and I would drop it in the pool,
Yeah.
okay, or the bathtub, and see how fast the fall rate is, okay, and watch it. If it's falling about a foot and a half, you know, per second, then I can count it down the next day. Or if it's falling, you know, 6 inches a second, I now have something to go off of, okay? And if I'm going fishing, I'm always going to have this with me. So if I go to a new area, a new pond, a new lake, and I don't have a fancy GPS on my boat, all I got to do is tie this bad boy on, count it down, and now I've got some type of range, right? Because if you're fishing 20 feet of water, you don't want to fish the guy that only sinks 1 foot, right? Because the fish may be at the bottom.
Yeah.
That's 19 feet between your bait and the fish. There's a good possibility they're not going to eat this bait, okay? But if you go to a crankbait that dives 15 to 18 foot, okay, you'll have a better shot catching fish, okay? So just some small tips on how, you know, even from the bank or from the pier, whatever the case may be, you can determine just by using your baits, okay? So we got the top, the middle. Let's talk about the bottom. Okay, a couple different things. You got a jig. Okay, what do you guys think that looks like?
Crawfish.
There you go. Right. Crawfish don't swim on the surface, right? They stay on the bottom. So this jig right here, it's composed of a couple different things. Okay. Comes in a package just like this, ready to go. Okay. What you want to do is you want to add a trailer. And when I say trailer, I mean any piece of soft plastic that's going to give it some more life. Okay. So when I put this on there, you got a little bait keeper right there. Push it up on there, give it a little tug, and now it's not going anywhere. Okay? But when I throw it out, the head is going to sit down like that, and that soft plastic on the back is going to raise up, and it's going to look just like a crawfish in the defensive mode. Okay? When a crawfish gets scared or something comes around, he throws his claws up just like this. Okay? And what you do is, you know, if you have a target, when I say target, say the tripod is a piece of wood sticking out, okay? And you're walking the bank or you're on a dock or a pier, whatever the case may be. Your target, you want to get this bait to that target, okay? What I want to do is, I don't want to throw it right in the center of the tripod, okay? Because what's going to happen? This bait, when you click your bail on your reel, the line's going to get tight. And instead of it landed in the tripod, it's going to land 3 feet from the tripod. Okay? Because your line got tight, and your bait, instead of falling straight down, it fell down like this. Okay? So your target's right here. You throw directly to it, and by the time it settles, it's over here. So you haven't even hit the target. The fish is more likely going to be around the structure, okay, the cover of the target. Alright? If you're out here, you're not going to get bit. So what you want to do is you want to be past the target. Okay, so you want it to go maybe 2 or 3 feet past, right? Engage your reel, and by the time it falls, if this is your target, he's now right here. Now you have opportunity to work the bait past the target. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. Or what we do, if we're fishing a target, okay. So the tripod is our target, okay. And I'm flipping a jig to that target, okay. And this is what I'm talking about. If I was flipping to it and I went straight to it like that, when my line got tight, see where it landed? Okay? And that's exactly what would happen in the water. It would actually start coming back towards me. Okay? But if I go past it, okay, now I have an opportunity to work my bait to the target. Okay? Just like this. Now look at that thing on the carpet. If that was on the bottom, it would look just like a crawfish. Okay? Now remember, in the water, the soft plastic on the back of it would stand straight up. So as he come by the dock pole or the piece of wood or the rock that's right there, and it touches it, and I stop it, and those claws flare up, anything that's around that is going to try to eat it. Okay. So again, I go way past it, 2-3 foot, and I have the ability to work it to the target, as opposed to coming up short. Again, if I try to go to the target and I stop it with my thumb and it starts coming towards me because it's now in water, right? I'm not even going to be close to the target. Make sense?
Yep.
So, the jig covers the bottom, okay? Again, the weight's on the head, okay? You got your line tie. This is a weed guard, okay? That's to prevent you from getting hung up, okay? Because you have an exposed hook, all right? Big old meat gaff right here, all right? So if you come up to a piece of cover, it should bounce or work right past it because of the weed guard, okay? I add a piece of plastic, all right? And then one thing you want to do, if you buy a jig out of the store and you have a skirt and you match the piece of plastic, okay, you don't want the skirt to be longer than the trailer, okay? Because the skirt will actually not allow the plastic to move, okay? And as you can see, I haven't done anything to this jig. It's actually longer than it's supposed to be. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna grab it, put everything down, just like this, take a pair of scissors and give it a haircut, right? Now, see the way I grabbed it and I folded all the skirts together? When I let it go, it's kind of flare back up. So you wanna make sure you don't cut it too short, right? Because if you give it a haircut too short, when you let it go, it's gonna look like an afro, right? But we just want to give it a low reg, right? Just a little bit off. Let it flare back up. Check our trailer, right? And that's basically what you want. You want the claws out past the bottom of your skirt so you get the full action of the plastic. Okay. You don't have a pair of scissors. One thing you could do. Give them a little haircut with your fingers. That would hurt more. Okay. So now we're ready. Okay. So we got the jig. This is kind of like the all-in-one package. It's got weight. It's got a big old hook, okay? It's got a weed guard and it's got a trailer, so you're ready to go, okay? If you're in an area where, maybe the jig might be too big, maybe the fish don't generally eat crawfish in a pond that you're at, and they forage on different type of bait fish or something like that, you may have to do something a little bit different. And that's where we go into rigging plastic worms or creature baits. Okay, so here's a worm. There's a worm. Here's a creature bait. Okay. Here's another one. So right there, I'm given 6 options, okay, and that doesn't even touch the amount of options that there are out there. But to me, this is like the most simple, right? You have a straight tail stick bait, which is a Cinco. You have a U-tail worm that has, it's a straight tail worm with a U-tail. So as you're working it, this flaps and gives off a little bit of vibration. Okay, this is a Cinco. It's straight, but when it falls differently. Okay. Here's the old trusty brush hog. Right. What do you think that resembles? Okay. But with the appendages, it's a little bit more bulkier than the Cinco. Okay. Or the straight tail worm. Okay. It's got a little bit different arms. Might resemble a crawfish. Okay. If it's getting dragged. And you got the little flappers in the back. Okay. So ideally, if you're pulling it into the boat, it's coming this way. Those things are back there doing that, right? And of course, we know what that resembles. Same thing, right? Different shape, but different, or same purpose. Okay. But we're gonna talk about rigging, because that's the most important. Like, you can literally throw 100 different soft plastics. The rigging is gonna be the same. Okay. So what we're going to do, we're actually going to practice. I want to make sure you guys get it right. So again, sharp hooks, be careful. And I apologize, those are a little rusty, so if you poke yourself, you might have to give you a tetanus shot. But there's a weight. Okay. Let's look at the weights, different sizes. Okay. Yours is a little bit bigger than his. All right. If we're fishing shallow water, we want to get away with the smallest weight as possible. Okay, these are actually tungsten. They're a little bit more expensive, but again, the right tools for the right job. Right, I can go to Walmart and I can buy lead sinkers, all right, for $1 a pack. But the weight of the lead sinker is going to be twice the size of the tungsten. Okay, so if I want a 3/8 ounce lead versus a 3/8 ounce tungsten, the lead is going to be twice the size, but the same weight. Okay, And again, we want to get away with being as compact as possible. Making sure that we're not getting hung up because of the size of the weight. If we're fishing around a lot of rocks that have little nooks and crannies, if you have a big weight and it gets stuck in between those rocks, you're never getting it back, right? Does that make sense? So we're going to talk about rigging plastics, okay? There's a couple different ways, but the absolute best way to stay hang-free, okay, is what we call Texas rig, okay? And that's going to make sure that our bait, the hook of the hook is actually inside the plastic worm. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're all going to get a U-tail worm. Okay. Now, no matter if it's a worm, a beaver, a crawfish, whatever, you have to determine what the head of the bait is. Very simple, right? So this is the head of the bait. Okay. Look at the bend of your hook. Okay. This is a wide gap hook, right? And you see where it bends up to go to the line tie. Okay. That's actually what's going to stick in our bait, and it's going to look just like this. Okay. So you see how big the bend is? That's how far you want to go in to the worm. Okay. So you're going to take your hook upside down. Okay. Grab it with your thumb and your third finger. Okay. Just like this. Take your pointer finger, put it right on the top of the. Okay. Perfect. We're going to go in to the head of the bait. Okay. Now picture how big your bend is here. That's how far you want to go in. Okay. Now, all you're going to do, same finger position, you're going to come right out the side of it. Okay. Alright, once you come out the side of it, just take it right on the point of the hook. Up to the line tie. Yep.
Mhm.
All you gotta do is spin it around now. Yep, roll it at the top so it looks just like this. Yep, you're almost there. Okay, listen. Yeah, so you gotta make that turn. Okay. Let me see. Nope, you got it. You made the turn. And now you see how it's sitting on that notch? Okay. That's part of it. So now, all right, and again, remember our line is tied to there, okay? So if it tried to pop off, it wouldn't if your line was there. It would just run up your line, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to measure where it needs to go in, okay? So if you look, my thumb is right where it needs to go, okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bend the worm, and I'm going to go all the way through the worm where I measure with my finger. So see how for the point to be right there, it needs to go right in here. Okay? Got it? Yep, so it needs to go in there. Okay, so right where your fingers are, take and bend your worm and push your point all the way through. Make sure when you do it, you want to bend your worm and keep it straight.
Oh, straight through, okay.
Yep, straight through.
Okay.
Okay, so now, what you're going to do is you're going to skin hook it. Okay, so what you're going to do, you got a straight worm. You want to pull on it, stretch it a little bit. Okay, and see how the. Okay, so that's how you keep from getting hung up. Perfect. Okay, so now you're Texas rigged. Okay, if you hit a branch or a tree, it can come over without grabbing that hook. Okay. And actually, I'm a bad instructor. I gave you guys the wrong hooks, but you did great. Okay. So look, and I'm gonna show you the difference. Because if you go down to Walmart, there's a billion hooks to buy. Okay. But if you know you want to go out worm fishing, you gotta have the right hook. All right. Again, right tool. Right. I think I've said that like 6 times. So that's your takeaway, right? The right tool. Because if you go out there with the wrong tools, you're just defeating the
It's
purpose.
just wasting your time.
You might catch one or two,
Yeah.
but wouldn't you rather catch 20,
Yep.
right? So with the right tools, we catch more fish, okay? So look at the difference. The wide gap, look where the point of the hook is going to the bend, okay? Now how important was that bend when we started rigging the worm? It was very important, right? Look at it here. It's way above it, okay? So that's why your worm didn't get straight on the hook. All right, so again, I grab it, pointer finger. I'm going in just as much as I think the bend is. I'm gonna go straight out, okay? I'm gonna grab my hook, I'm gonna run it up there, and then I'm gonna spin it. So you see that motion? Spin it, okay? It's gonna sit at that bend, okay? Now, I'm gonna measure where my hook needs to be. I'm gonna bend the worm fully, and I'm gonna go straight out to where the point's out. Then I can work it down. Okay. Now I grab and I pull, and I bury my hook point. Okay. Look how straight the worm is. Okay. The point is actually in the worm. Okay. But with the wide gap hook, when a fish comes up and bites it, okay, he pushes down on it, look at the hook. Perfect, right? Right in the roof of the mouth every time. Okay. So that's why it's important. You know, and if we did, you know, I've seen tournament guys do some, like crazy stuff like this. You know, not taking their time. Is that going to be successful? No. Okay.
That's what my bait looks like now.
Well, we have taught you the right way.
This has been enough for you. I can go home right now.
So this right here would not be successful around cover, okay? This might grab, okay? It's not going to be successful, right? But if we do it the right way. Now, when I get this bait to a piece of cover, let's get a glass. This is my tree limb, okay? When I'm working it up to the piece of cover, it's going to just slide right on over, okay, without getting hung up. Right? You go out there, I've seen guys do this too.
I've seen guys do that too. Every one of them.
Yeah, I do that one's one.
I've seen guys do this,
Yep.
okay? Again, you might catch a fish or two, but you're going to catch more tree limbs, okay? Because as the bait's coming up to the piece of cover that you're fishing, and that hook rolls, you're hung up. Okay, you're gonna lose a hook, you're gonna lose a worm, you're gonna lose a weight, all that good stuff. Yep, you'll lose line, exactly. Okay, but if we rig it the right way, we'll be more effective. Okay, again, I want you guys to practice with that hook. Oh, look here, got another one too. So look, again, there's my line, right? So even if I go a little bit further than the bend as a measurement, it's okay for the worm to run up the line as long as it's straight. See how perfectly straight it is? That's what we want. Okay. So let's practice with this one. So we can make sure we're masters of rigging a worm before we leave. Perfect. Nailed it. Okay. So again, this is called a Texas rig, soft plastic. Okay. And you know, that's so that it's skin hooked and the hook is not exposed. Okay. And of course, you add your weight right in front of the line, and it's a cone. So it literally would go, and that's perfect too. Good job. I'm rigging it a little bit backwards because the line from your rod would go through the head of the cone. Okay, but that's your rig right there, right? You have a weight, a hook, a worm. Your worm is Texas rig, and you can fish any cover with this. Okay. Again, we don't want to use too big of a weight if we're around rocks, and you know your weight's probably going to snag you before your hook because your hook is Texas rig. It's in the plastic, it's not gonna grab you. Okay? But as we're fishing, what's one thing we gotta pay attention to? Making sure it stays skin hooked. Because if you get a bite or you catch a fish and you're not paying attention, and that thing pops out just that much, that's a possibility of getting hung up right there. That hook's sharp and it'll grab anything that it gets close to. Okay? So, but that's our setup. Okay? This is probably one of the most basic techniques, but it's very proven. It'll catch a lot of fish. It covers the bottom. This bait right here, in general, because it has a U-tail, all right, and it puts all vibration. If you rigged it just like this, and you wound your reel as fast as you would for this, you could cover the water column, because you can keep this bait up in the water column, and that tail is back there flapping, and you actually catch fish like that too. Okay? Or it could be a surface bait. If I take my weight off and I throw just the worm on the surface and I reel it fast enough, that tail back there will be flopping on the water, making a little splash, and now I have a top water bait as well. Okay, so very versatile. Make sense? So that's the worm. In general, you have all the soft plastics, all right, but they all get rigged the same way. Okay? If I got a creature bait, all right, or this is actually called a sweet beaver, but it's a creature bait. It's not a straight tail worm. Anything other than that is a creature bait. So I got a creature bait. I know how big my bend is. I'm gonna come out. I'm gonna go up. Spin it. Okay. It's perfectly straight up top. Now same thing. I gotta find out where I gotta come. Right? She's ready to go. Okay? And again, I like to use these for casting. If I'm gonna make a long cast to fish it back, or I'm gonna burn it on the surface to maybe catch a top water, or I'm gonna reel it in the water column. This is something that I'm just gonna drag, right? It's gonna be just like this guy. Alright? I'm gonna get it around covered. It's gonna resemble a crawfish and they're gonna eat it. Okay? And again, weight size depends on water depth, right? How fast you want it to sink, how much contact you want with the bottom, right? If I put a big weight on there, you're gonna really have to pull on it to move it. If I put a light weight on there, it'll move faster. Okay. So we've talked about covering all the water columns: top water, spinner bait, a small crankbait, maybe 1 minus, even a bigger crankbait that'll dive a little bit deeper. Again, on every package, it tells you exactly how deep it runs, right? If you know you're fishing 4 feet of water, you don't want to buy a crankbait that runs 20 feet, right? Because it's not going to be effective. It's just going to dive straight into the bottom, and it's going to churn up and just drag in all kind of stuff that's on the bottom. So another very productive bait, okay, is a shaky head. Okay. So we talked about the Texas rigged worm, but this is a shaky head. Okay. This bait right here. Okay. It's got a little weighted head. All right. It's got a screw in to the head, so the bait goes on there very quickly. Very easy. See how straight the worm is? This one's not going to be Texas rigged because, again, it's not a wide gap. So look at your point, okay, to the screw of the head. It's like this, as opposed to being in line like we did with our wide gap. But the cool thing is, it's actually in the bait, okay? So you're not going to get hung up, right? When a fish bites it, okay, he's going to bite. When you set the hook, it's going to pop right through. Okay. So again, it's going to keep you out of the hang-ups, but it's going to be effective when fish bites. Okay. And again, with the weighted head, it sits on the bottom like this, and it does just that. See how that thing's shaking around? Okay. As you shake your rod tip, you might get a little wiggle out of the tail. Okay. Yeah. But fish love shaky heads. Okay? It's just a great method of catching a lot of fish. All right? So if you guys went out today and you threw a Texas rig worm, a shaky head, and maybe a surface bait, you can catch more fish. Okay? And then another technique, kind of new, we're actually, American fishermen are behind the curve. A lot of techniques get designed in Japan, and it leaks out and comes over, and we start becoming very successful with them. And one thing that I would say within the past couple of years that leaked out and we got wind of and we started doing it was a flick shake. Okay. So we talked about Texas rig, we talked about shaky head. There's a thing called wacky rig, where you take a Cinco or something plastic that's straight, take a hook, rig it right in the center of the bait, and when this bait, when you cast it out and it falls, again, you have an exposed hook, so you don't want to throw it around a bunch of cover, but if you're in open water, maybe right above the grass or right on the edge of the grass line, or maybe beside a dock, but not really, really close to the poles like you would be with the jig, right? The jig, you want it to hit the pole. This, you want it to be just kind of close and falling beside it because of the exposed hook. But when you throw it out there, this bait, as it's falling, it just wiggles like this, right? And the fish will come up and grab it. But it's a very slow fall because it's just the worm and it's just the hook. But with this, okay, this is called the flick shake. All right, see how small the hook is? But there's a tungsten ball on the end, so it gives it weight. Okay, so it'll actually get down faster. But with the rod tip, you can work the bait more effective than just that. Okay, this, as it's falling and you pop your rod tip, it's going to go back up and it's going to take forever to fall back. Okay, this right here with the weighted head, you determine it by the tip of your rod and how you work the bait. Does that make sense? So like if your bait's falling and you know, on the last dock pole you fished, you caught it, the fish, as it fell 2 feet under the surface. Okay, and then the next pole you do the same thing. When I get to the third pole, I can keep it at that height by working my rod tip because of this weight. It's going to go up and fall, up and down, up and down. Does that make sense? With this, I kind of got to wait for it to fall, and then lift it back up, and then wait for it to fall. Okay, so with the weighted head, this is a wacky rig, and this is very successful, right? And this is a flick shake. The difference is it has a weighted head. Okay, and you generally use a smaller diameter worm with this. Where with the wacky rig, see how fat the Cinco is? We'll use that. Okay. Very popular technique, this flick shake. Very easy to use. Catches a lot of fish. And again, it leaked out of Japan, and now a bunch of guys are winning money on it. So it's proven itself.
You said that's in people would though, where you can go to bottom.
Not necessarily. It's that's a bait designed to keep it in the strike zone longer because of the head. Like if it's sinking and I work the bait, I can make it shake a little bit more erratic because it's got the weight on it. So think about the worms. The worm's horizontal. The head has the weight on it. If I'm shaking that weight's moving back and forth. It's making your worm move back and forth. Where this one, it's just slowly falling, right? Yeah, if you pop it, the worm's gonna go back and then open back up. But it's coming back up to you at the boat like this. The fall rate is a lot slower with this. Where the fall rate's faster, and again, you can create reaction strikes with that faster than you can with this. Right? Cover more. I think you can cover more water with this because it's weighted. Right? You don't have to wait for it to fall. You can put it where you want it, shake it, okay, and move on. Where that one you kind of like, all right, I'm waiting for it to fall, and now I can move on. Okay. So, so again, the reason we call this class junk fishing, right? Because we don't want to get stuck in a pattern of staying inside of our box, right? Like if I always go out and I always catch them on a Cinco, and that's all I throw, and I'm not experiencing any other thing, I'm inside my box. There's been times in tournaments where, you know, a couple days before a tournament, I caught them really good on this. I get out there for a tournament, the conditions change, and I don't get bit on this, right? So if I stay inside my box, I'm going to come in the tournament with 0 fish because I tried to force this, as opposed to thinking, hey, what else can I do? Can I Texas rig something? Can I throw a top water? You know, what's the conditions telling me to do? What's the fish telling me to do? Okay. So junk fishing is like, hey, having a bunch of stuff in a box, trying it out, getting outside of your comfort zone, you know, not just sticking to one specific technique. Okay. And again, you know, there's so much stuff,
Oh, yeah.
you know, that we could have talked about. You know, I could take a week of talking about junk fishing, but what I did was I chose, you know, several different baits that can really cover from top to bottom, make you guys successful at catching fish, whether it's in a pond or walking from the bank or in a boat. You know, so I hope you guys learned some stuff. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. You know, you guys did great with the rigging. You know, that's very, very
I'm gonna
important.
try that this weekend.
So, yeah, I would definitely recommend it. You know, the shaky head again is a fish catcher. Let's talk about the rod and reel setup real quick. Again, you guys can go to Walmart, Dick's, Gander Mountain, whatever, and buy a combination rod and reel. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you buy a catfish rod and reel combination and you go out and try to shaky head fish, it's not going to work, right? Again, you might catch 1 or 2, and that's just pure luck, right? To be successful, you got to have the right equipment. So if I want to go out shaky head fishing, I want to have a spinning rod, okay? And the reason I want a spinning rod because it has light line, all right? I need to use light line with these baits. You know, I can flick shake, I can shaky head, I can wacky rig, all right? But I don't want to throw a top water on this, okay? And I'll show you why. If you look at this rod and the way it bends, okay, see how much it bends? That's because it has a soft tip on the rod. So I don't jerk this bait, this particular hook out of the fish's mouth. I have room to play with the fish, okay, to work them to the boat. It's not as stiff, okay? But on my bait casting rod, if you look for my jig rod, much thicker, heavier line, okay, and a much stiffer rod, okay? So I could get away with throwing a top water or a jig or a frog on this rod, but I couldn't with this, okay? You do a frog on this rod, you'll get a blow up, and if you set the hook, you might stick the fish, but the chances of getting them back to the boat or the dock or the bank is very, very slim. Like you might fight them for a few seconds and it'll come off because you didn't have the power in the rod to set the hook and drive the hook all the way through the fish. It might have stuck him and grabbed him on the skin like this, okay? But as he's fighting, it comes off, okay? Where if I have a strong hook and I jammed it in there, you guys thought I was going to jam it in my finger.
I was going to ask him to get some Band-Aids with you.
If I jammed it in him
Yeah.
with a strong hook set and a strong rod, he's not coming off, okay? So again, a light wire or a light action rod, you might get the skin hook, and that's literally what it looks like in a fish's mouth. They'll get just the skin, and you'll have them on for a few seconds. But as he fights, it's just going to pop off. All right. But if you get the right rod, the right backbone, the right line to do that. So, perfect world. You know, if we all went on a shopping spree right now, and the three of us walked into one of those retailers, and I said, "Hey guys, you know, let's get a spinner rod and a bait casting rod." That would be like ideal for you. A spinner rod that you could put light line on and do, you know, those 3 or 4 techniques, and a bait casting rod that has, you know, a medium backbone, which is the power of the rod, and a fast tip, and you can pretty much do this stuff with it. Okay, and I would say line probably 12 to 14 pound test on the bait casting rod, and 8 or 10 pound line on a spinning rod. Okay.
So any difference in like the open face and closed face, the other one stuff?
Yeah, I mean, there's a big difference. Like,
As far as utility, I mean, I know the casting and stuff's gonna be different, but
the casting is going to be different. The line capacity is going to be different, right? Like this spinning rod has a spool that's faced up, and it's saying, you know, with 8 pound line, I can get 125 yards. Where on my bait casting reel, the spool is sideways. Okay, see how it's sideways on here? I can get more line on here. I can get heavier line. The spool on the spinning reel is smaller than this reel. So I get smaller line at 125 yards, where on this I get bigger diameter, heavier line, and get more on this spool. Does that make sense?
yes.
So this is my finesse rod, right? That I really got to take my time.
Yeah.
This is my winch,
Right.
right? This is my winch. I put the heavy line. I got a heavy backbone, and I force them to the boat. This one I'm on pins and needles whenever I hook on, right? And then
let them get tired first.
yes, yeah. On this, because it's light line, you let them get tired. This one I'm like, nope, you're skiing across the water to the boat, buddy, right? And then if you look on the reels, they all have the amount of bearings, okay, and then the gear ratio. Right? The gear ratio is the speed of the line that it takes in for every crank of the handle. Okay. So if I bought a cranking reel that has like a 5 to 1, it's going to be a slower reel. It's not going to pull in as much line. Where this one's like 7 to 4. Every time I turn the reel, it's taking in like 26 inches of line. Okay. So again, if I make a really long cast and I'm fighting a fish, I set the hook. Every time I crank, I'm getting 26 inches of line in. Okay, it's a better opportunity to get that fish in, as opposed to using something with a lesser gear ratio, right? It's not as fast and it's not taking as much line in. I got to reel twice as fast to get them in. Okay, so that's the little things to look at if you're gonna purchase a reel. And then, you know, with bait casters, you know, it's all about practice, right? When you get it, if you purchase one at the store, most of them are not ready to be fished right then and there. Like you have to tune them in. Again, you have to sight them in, right? So there's different things like braking systems, right? That you have to adjust to get it dialed in just right. Okay, and all that is playing with it. So like with this one, this knob right here, or the brakes, see how fast the bait's, the more I let out, the faster it gets. Okay, so what I do, I just bought this reel out of the store. Okay, I put line on it. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tighten this down all the way. Okay, it's not gonna move. All right, I'm gonna twist it. I hear it click, I hear it click. Bait's not moving yet, there it goes. Okay, I'm watching the spool. Okay, it's barely moving. I'm using my thumb. I want it to hit the floor, and when it hits the floor, I want it to stop. Okay. This is going to be disastrous, but I'm going to show you why you want it to stop when it hits the floor, okay, or it hits the table. See how it stopped? Now watch this. If I open it up,
Oh, you're lying, yeah.
see how it comes off of there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's why you want to turn it all the way down and just slowly start backing it off, okay? And when it hits the ground, it should stop and never do that.
Yeah.
That's how you get what we call professional overwind, okay, or a backlash. And then you're gonna have to dig it out like this. You know, I'm keeping my thumb on there. And you're gonna get these. You should be getting these while you're tuning in your reel. You know, but I'm keeping my thumb on there. I'm pulling it out, okay. Once I get it out, I see that it's all the way out. I'm gonna grab it with my 2 fingers, engage the reel, and I'm gonna line my line up, making sure that it's straight through here and that it's coming through my fingers and it's staying tight. Okay. So I know that was not good. So I'm
never
gonna,
do it again.
yeah, I'm gonna tighten it up a little bit. Okay, it did it a little bit more, so I'm almost there. I pulled a little bit off. I got it tight. I'm just going to turn it just a little bit, and we should be dialed in now. Okay, let's see how it. I no longer have a backlash. So once I get it dialed in, just by standing still and letting it hit the ground, I'm ready to start casting now. Okay, I'm going to use this side. This side is open up for it to come freely. I'm going to use this side as the brakes to help slow it down and help in the wind. So if I'm casting into the wind, I'm going to start adjusting these to help me not have backlashes. Okay. And again, it's just using your equipment, getting familiar with it, getting it dialed in. Again, if I go into the store, buy it, put line on it, go straight to the pond and make the first cast, it's going to go, whoo, it's going to blow up. You're going to get mad. You're going to throw it in the water and be like, no, I'm done with those. These take time, right? I got buddies that fish tournaments that still have problems with them. It does take time, but once you get familiar with this, you're going to want to use this more than a spinning rod because, again, this is your workhorse. This is your winch. You'll see more results out of this, of landing the fish. So, but that was a good question. You guys got any more questions?
Actually, that covered everything that I explained was why my parents recorded fishing.
Yeah. There's a lot of guys that just walk in and buy those reels,
Oh, yeah.
and they blame it on the reel, but they didn't do any tuning, right? They're frustrated, they're mad because it's the reel's fault. Well, if you don't tune it, you know, and here's the thing, you got to tune it to the bait, right? So if I put this on there and get it to fall so slow that it stops when it hits the ground, it may not move when I put this lightweight on there, right? But if I tune it for a lightweight and I put a heavier bait on there, it's going to hit the ground, you're going to get a bird's nest, right? So it's the little things that you think about that make the difference.
Like I said, it's the stuff that made my parents horrible at fishing.
So, yeah, so I mean, that covers it. That's like junk fishing 101 at its finest right there.